I'm almost to the point of actually gluing the pieces together. I've got a little bit of cleanup to do, and I did the dry brushing. Parts of the red here got slightly brushed, and I am a bit of a fanatic when it comes to doing it properly, so I'll redo that because I'm going to dry brush them with something, the red pieces with something totally different. And then I'm going to have to paint the gold that goes on the side patches and on the front of the vehicle. I have to do that before I can glue all the pieces together, because obviously the grill here is going to cover everything. Also, what I need to do, and while I've got this loose and it's easy to handle, is paint the yellow on the tops of the missiles. Now, yellow is one of those terrible colors to paint. You have to do layer after layer, never works right. So here's a trick that I do, is don't just paint the yellow. First of all, paint a light color. In this case, I'm going to use grey base. You pick a paint that you know dries fast and gives a nice adherence for the yellow to come, and something that's light in color. Base works fine. Do that first. Then what I'll do is I'll actually paint yellow ochre, which has got a far better bonding property than just yellow itself. Also, it's slightly darker. So once that's painted, I can then go to a lighter color. In this case, I'll use either a lemon yellow or possibly, deep yellow. Probably a deep yellow, and then I'll just layer on top of that with the lemon yellow. That'll actually give it a three-dimensional look. So that said, let's get this done. As you can see, the paint adheres beautifully, no problems whatsoever, which will make my painting yellow just that much easier. You'll see that I have now painted the yellow ochre onto the missile heads. I also, while I was at it, because all the lights appear to be yellow in most of the tones and codexes I can see, painted the same on the headlights. On that light there, the other two small ones are red, and on the back here there's two lights on either side, and on the grille there's two lights. So now what I'll do is I will paint the deep yellow. Use a little bit of water because you don't need this to be thick now. And I will just brush the tips. You can see how little paint I'm going to need for this. So I'm going down about 2/3 of the missiles. And we now go to the lightest shade, which is the lemon yellow, and here I'm just doing the top third of each missile. I've now completed the headlights with the yellow ochre, and then the deep yellow, and then the lemon yellow, giving a slightly layered effect. Later, after we've finished the rest, I will go in and I will glaze those. That'll really give them a lot of pop. But first we actually have to do the last highlight, which is really white, just a plain vanilla white. And I've done the same here, as you can see. For these here, you could always just paint on a little bit of white on the tip, but sometimes I find it a little bit more effective to dry brush. So what I'm doing is I'm dry brushing with white. This is plain vanilla white. There you go. White. Make sure you wipe all the excess off that brush and then just lightly towards the tip. This way, if you go from bottom to top, most of the white will end up towards the tip of the missile, giving a slight bling effect. And as we know, all these monsters, marines, all extra-military, they all seem to love bling. Never worked out why. It's not very soldier-like. And there we have our missiles. In fact, you can probably see the effect better if I zoom in. I'm not quite sure how well the colours will stand out, but it should actually be showing the yellow going towards white at the tip. But while I was doing that, waiting for the paint to dry, I actually did some gold here, and I used polished gold. There we go, polished gold. It has a nice smooth look to it. Then I used silver for the skull, and that was just a plain vanilla silver. So I'll finish doing those headlamps, and then I'm going to have to go and highlight all the metallic paint, the gold and the silver, also on the sides there obviously. I finished off the headlights with a light dot of white straight in the middle of the bowl. Once it is glazed, it's going to have a great effect. It'll look just like this headlamps. When you dry brush those any lights, you can always go a little bit to the side and actually merge it into whatever's next to it, so it looks like the lights are glowing. You can't see it too much there. I don't want to go wild. However, for instance, if you're doing a plasma gun, you'll see how I've actually allowed it to actually go a little bit over the edges, and it looks just like it's got a good glow coming off it. There you go. See the top of the skull, you can actually see where some of the dry brushing's gone slightly over, and it gives you this whole effect like it's glowing. But now we have to highlight the metallic bits here. And so what I'm going to do is use Nolden oil, that wonderful stuff, and do point washing, so it'll bring out all these, the lettering at the bottom, any other details that we want. There's little folds in the scroll. Excellent. All those details are now being picked out a lot better, and because I washed over all the metallic pieces, this gives me the opportunity of actually highlighting the bits I want highlighted. I've finished the wash, and it's brought out a lot of the detail. Even the writing can be seen now. But now it looks a little dull. One of the tricks to learn with highlighting gold is that silver actually brings out the gold, but you need a very bright silver. In this case I'm using chainmail silver, which I find is a very bright silver. So in dry brushing we're going to, as usual, dose up the brush, make sure we've got all the excess off, and then just lightly brush over all these metallic parts, and yep, it brings them right back to life. This way it looks slightly weathered, but it still has that bling appearance. Now you might notice that a little bit of the brushing might have got onto the red, so you get little streaks of silver on the red. I'm not terribly worried about that at the moment, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try and highlight the red, bring that red out, give it a couple of layers. In fact, I'll be using Bugman's Glow, but I believe I'll use that more as a dry brush to highlight the edges, and I will do as a shade paint. I'll use it almost as a wash. That's Carenberg Crimson, and that'll cover up a lot of those little silver speckles that we saw. So as you might see, what I'm really doing is edging a lot of this with the crimson. That gives it just that little bit of pop. Like we completed the Camo Crimson, and now I've actually got a dry brush here with the Bugman's Glow, and this is really bringing out the edge. I'll bring out the rivets as well. That really brings it out nicely. As you can see, we now have a defined edge. Where before they were sort of lost. Now it stands out because of the highlighting. You'll notice around the edges it looks a little paler, the rivets are now showing. So now I'm going to do the same with the sides. Real issue that I have after that is that some of that Bugman's Glow has got onto little bits of gold and doesn't quite bling as much as it did, even though I've added a silver brush to it. Here and there I think it would be nice to actually add a highlight of gold back in. So what I will do is go back to the polished gold, and we will add in some slight touches just to bring this to life.